I've got 5 minutes. I'm just getting it started so I can get the Facebook Live going.
We got 5 minutes.
Oh my God.
I'll get it for you. Pretty good.
So I have the mouse sitting on top of this pole thing right here. You can either tap it with your finger or you can just click on this.
I can click here.
Yeah. Oop. We'll just hit launch when it's time. So we'll put that over there.
So we just do launch.
Yeah.
You let me know when we want to start.
Yeah, a minute, so we could probably.
Is the mic on? Well, it's getting quiet in here, which is the big suspense is coming up. Okay, so we're going to launch something here. Oops. It's not doing it. Yeah, but I was Oh, it doesn't look bad. Well, welcome to our Heritage Awards. We're a little delayed. We were going to do it in June of 2020. But anyway, we're here and we're really happy that we're here. So on behalf of our board, your board, I'm Steve Spiller, the current president of the society. And we appreciate those that are here because part of you are here and we think about 40 people are watching Zoom. And this is the first time we've ever tried to pull this off. And it's kind of historic. We're, as I said, combining live in person with live stream. And assume in classrooms all over the country, they're doing this. So, and it's our turn. We sincerely appreciate the help of Don McHugh, the director of the A.K. Smiley Public Library, and his staff that have enabled us to pull this off tonight, and quite appreciative of them. Terms of housekeeping, our first item normally for the June Heritage Awards is the election of officers, or excuse me, election of new board members. And I would like to introduce those who are here. The class of 2003 would be Marie Reynolds and John Paul Beal. So if you'll stand up, you're both here. And then the class of 2004, we have Aaron Benson and Jennifer Schaefer. So. Okay, and I need a motion to accept the ballot and a second.
I move we accept the ballot.
Thank you, Karen. A second?
Second.
Susan, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Okay, and then Aaron is checking the Zoom to see if how the vote is for there. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to Jill Hunsinger, who's our chairman of our Heritage Awards. And so Jill, it's up to you to start this off.
Thanks, Steve. Good evening, everybody. Thank you again for your attendance, and we hope you enjoy our presentation this evening. Our first presenter is going to be Karen Flippin. Karen Flippin, if you would like to come up and present to us.
Can you give us just a second?
Pause. Remain seated.
It's not casting.
Got it. It's not broadcasting to the Zoom, trying to get it to catch up. There I am.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Unanimous. Woohoo! 100%. Let me know when we're good to go. All right, when the lights come down, the lady comes up. Karen, come on up.
Okay. Now you just, all you see is my head. I was told not to touch anything. They know how mechanical I am. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah, see.
Okay, everyone can hear me now?
yes.
Okay. I won't touch it. I won't touch anything. This is the John Milton and Caroline Hartzell Cadwell Cottage. It was 118 East Citrus Avenue. Now the new address is 1324. It's circa 1886. This 1.5-story Victorian cottage sits far back from Citrus Avenue, and it faces slightly northwest. The roof is a medium bell cast tip of composition shingles. The house is of redwood with clapboard siding and a river rock foundation. 3 dormers face east, west, and north. The cornices are boxed with a decorative trim running underneath and attached to the building surface. John Cadwell was born December 15, 1866 in Utica, LaSalle County, Illinois. The Redlands City Directory places John M. on Citrus Avenue in 1886 as a rancher. Being from Illinois, he could have been part of the Chicago colony. He married Caroline Hartzell in 1887. They had 2 sons, Herbert H. and Raymond A. Herbert was born in 1901 and died August 3rd, 1911 at age 10. The Los Angeles Times reported he died from complications from anesthesia from having a tonsillectomy. His funeral was in his home with the Reverend Frank Matthews of the First Baptist Church of Redlands officiating. Both John and Caroline were very active in the Baptist Church. In John's obituary of January 3rd, 1932, it stated he was a Sunday school superintendent, a trustee, and in the Baptist 100-year history book, said that he was a moderator from 1926 to 29. I didn't know what moderator was. So I asked a Baptist friend, they're the ones that run all the meetings instead of the pastor. So that's what a moderator is. He died suddenly of a heart ailment in his home. Caroline was on the History Commission. She died in 1962. The cottage has had many changes starting in the front. Part of the porch was enclosed to make an enclosed entrance. Yeah, that's cocoa. There's cocoa and pepper, black and brown. Just 2 turned spindles and a small balustrade remain. So you can see the 2 spindles there. There were others and they were saved. So they could be put back if the owners, later wanted to. So they weren't destroyed, and that's a good thing. The front door was replaced. Just east of this door is a large fixed window. A bedroom and bathroom were added in the attic. All dormer windows are new and open out. A large room was added to the east side and is covered with a flat roof. There is a 3-pane window with the center fixed and others open in. That's not the picture. There you go. Across the south side is a large glass door that opens in with a large glass pane to the right. There are 2 interesting features to the south side. A wooden flume that is connected to a cement cistern. Tom Atchley, a Redlands historian, said this was used to collect irrigation water and was then pumped into the water tank in the attic. Sort of like the Maury Mansion. They had the water tank in the attic. There's also an addition of an ice house made of brick, probably because the basement was too small for a root cellar. The room is 8 feet by 6 feet with 18-inch walls. The west portion of the home, an addition of a storage room. Let's see where. And it's completely redone. There's a wooden door to the cellar. When open, it shows the river rock foundation. On the west side, there are 2 double hung windows face west. West of the house, the owners have built a new 2-car garage to match the architecture of the home. The Cadwells moved in 1909 to 14 Citrus Avenue. The next owners were William Powers, a rancher, and his wife, Adeline. Then Powers and their son Walter and wife Catherine, they owned the Nolder and Powers Grocery and Meats at 528 Orange. Next, Donald and Caroline Blair, a plumbing contractor. Then their son, Alfred and Joanna Blair, orange grower and county peach inspector. Richard and Della Brega, he owned the Grove Trucking and Contracting, later Brega Brothers Trucking. Next, Arch and Lucille Celery, apartment owners. In 1967, Gilbert M. Gerard III and Sharon L. Gerd. And in 1999, the present owners, Kirk and Ellen Keeler. The Keelers wanted to move to Redlands from the San Bernardino and buy a Victorian house. In 1999, after much searching, the Citrus house came on the market and they bought it right away. It took them 1.5 years to clear the vegetation so you could see the house. Can you imagine doing that? They remodeled the upstairs bathroom and downstairs bathroom. Downstairs, when removing the old shower enclosure, they discovered a clawfoot bathtub, which they kept. Another project was the ice house. It was filled with sawdust. And sifting through, they found a 1906 $5 gold piece. Needless to say, they did a lot more searching. They haven't found, the only other thing they found was a 1903 mousetrap. The ice house is now their pantry. Ellen Keeler is a retired letter carrier, and after 33 years, and Kurt retired after 40 years in construction, installing water and sewer pipes. They have 5 children and 8 grandchildren. Their 2 dogs, Coco and a chocolate lab, and Pepper, a black lab, also enjoy the house and their own dog house that matches the cottage. Now they are retired, the Keelers are content to put all of their energy into the inside and outside of their cottage. And the Redlands Area Historical Society wishes to thank them with this 2021 Heritage Award. I present it? Yeah, you would want me to present it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Next is Jill Huntsinger.
Thank you, Karen. 332 South Eureka Street, circa 1889, the John McIntosh House. Reaching back in time prior to the construction of the residence, Mrs. Curtis Wells of Redlands purchased lots 9 and 11 in Block A of the Holden Villa tract on Eureka from J.D. Holden of Stockton for $750. Shortly after, the lots were purchased from Wells by John McIntosh of Boston, Massachusetts. McIntosh came to San Francisco, California first in 1881 and was married in that town to Miss Harriet Jones, a native Californian, and moved to Redlands in 1886. After moving to Redlands, McIntosh began construction with the Taylor brothers on what we now know as 332 South Eureka. Builder A.E. Taylor came to Redlands in 1882, owned his own brickyard, and built the first brick home in Redlands in 1884. He was the foreman and later the superintendent for the building of Bear Valley Dam in 1884. Taylor built or provided bricks for many of the buildings still to be seen in town today, including the Academy of Music building, Masonic Temple, Trinity Episcopal Church, Finney Block, the Orange Growers building, A.K. Smiley Public Library, Lincoln Memorial Shrine, First National Bank, Elks Clubhouse, buildings at the corners of 5th and East State, the original high school, and many more. John McIntosh had followed blacksmithing and carriage building in the East. And not long after their arrival in Redlands, he opened a shop here on the corner of Citrus and 5th. At the time, there were two such shops, one of which Mr. Scheif's Macintosh bought out. 1 year later, he built a shop for himself at the corner of Citrus and Orange, and in 1893 moved his location to Citrus just west of Cajon. Mr. Macintosh had a stellar reputation as a thorough workman himself, known for quality manufacturing and employing the most competent assistants. Macintosh became a prolific builder in town and built many homes on East and West Fern. This home was his second in Redlands and was built as a rental first occupied by Reverend E.A. Carmichael and Reverend W.G. Conley, who are listed as the occupants on the original water connection records. Macintosh's last family residence is 504 West Fern, the northwest corner of Fern and Buena Vista. In a 1976 Historic Resources Inventory documentation, researcher Melinda Swift calls this a, quote, white one-story house with exterior walls made of brick. The roof is truncated hip, tar and gravel shingles. There is a triangular shaped dormer on the front of the house. A bay window is located directly under the dormer. The windows are sash style. There is an open veranda with 2 square pillars. The stairs leading to the house are stoop. There is a wall of fieldstones supporting the open veranda, unquote. In 1991, the historical inventory form is updated by Mr. Tom Ashley to show the home is back to its original brick color with some changes and additions, including the square pillars on the veranda being replaced by turned posts to mimic the one to the left of the porch entry steps, along with the addition of decorative brackets to match the previously singular one, also to the left of the entry steps. At that time, a decoration was added to the inset of the fish scale sided Grecian style dormer above the venting. It has since been removed. Interesting brickwork is noted on the exterior with a modified King's row. That's actually going to be the center picture. A King's row, for those of you that don't know, is a form of reinforcement where the bricks would be turned on end. So about every 8th row, you will see a short row of bricks and then it returns to long and so on. So that was their earthquake reinforcement. Picking up from there, sorry about that. And a seam at the bay window may indicate a possible addition after its original construction. You can see that seam on the far right there. Brick Victorian homes are rare in Redlands, this being one of approximately 4 in town. Its notable original and added exterior attributes are cut stone walls and curbs, river rock front porch detail and planters, turned posts with decorative brackets, bay window, granite stone hitching posts, that's my favorite, and a ribbon driveway. There is a canary palm that graces the front landscape. There are 2 chimneys, one of which backs to the now main bedroom with firebox covered over many years ago. The interior features include pocket doors from the dining room to the living room, where an absolutely gorgeous fireplace is a breathtaking anchor, fancy Victorian era hardware, 4-inch wide variegated wood plank floors, embossed front entry wall coverings, and an interior access basement. A smart addition was made to the rear of the home to provide a roomy utility area. Although a small home, its details are fine and in some cases quite ornate. The home has had several owners and occupants through the last 132 years, providing the enjoyment of its quality, character, and charm to many. Surprisingly, with so many owners, smart retention and improvements have been made over time, a brilliant kitchen remodel being one of those. Other significant upgrades include a foundation rehabilitation by C.E. Blanc in 1952, and the addition of the in-ground pool by Pat Dorfsmith in 1985 for $8,200. Its longest running owners were the Heatwell family, totaling some 40 years from 1911 until 1948. In 1984, Richard M. Strauss and Susan G. Strauss sold to Patrick R. Dorfsmith. This transfer is notable because Mr. Dorfsmith is credited with submitting an application for the home to be placed on the Redlands Historic and Scenic Property Registration, which was accepted on October 1st, 1985. At that time, the home is one of approximately 25 city registered structures under Ordinance 1600. Dorfsmith truly loved this home, as evidenced by his hand-drawn rendering of the residence at the time of his ownership. On December 19, 2013, Doug and Lisa Barbie made themselves the most recent proud owners of 332 South Eureka. The Barbies both grew up in the Inland Empire area and had planned on staying, so the Eureka house is their forever home. Lisa has been with her company for 20 years as franchise office manager of 17 Domino's Pizzas. Doug has been in the restaurant management business for 25 years. They love all of the classic details, especially the fireplace, but most of all, love the house. Most of all, the house really provides a sense of calm, love, and positivity for them. The house exudes good vibes and karma all together. That is what they love the most. They feel very fortunate to have found it and enjoy it very much. On behalf of the Redlands Area Historical Society, we would like to congratulate and thank the Barbie family with the designation and presentation of a 2021 Heritage Award on 332 South Eureka Street. Where are they? And next up, we have President Steve Spiller.
Thank you, Jill. And we're going to 758 South Center Street. John Riddle might not recognize the house he built in 1894. For majority of the home's lifetime, this once two-story Queen Anne at 758 South Center has slipped through our consciousness as a one-story, mostly stuccoed version of its original self. Elements of the Victorian era remain, some hidden while others clearly visible to the discerning eye. John Oscar Riddle was born on June 21st, 1862, near New Haven, Connecticut, where he resided until moving to California around 1890. The young man established himself in Redlands as a prominent young businessman. According to Illustrated Redlands, Riddle spent 4 years as the assistant to the Redlands city engineer, E.A. Tuttle. The brief biography reported that Riddle was also engaged in growing citrus fruits, having nearly 20 acres of oranges and lemons. He owns the oldest grove in Redlands proper, a seedling orchard on the corner of Center Street and Olive Avenue. The 1912 city directory also noted John was in the olive and olive oil business. This Connecticut Yankee purchased 2.5 acres from Lee H. Hutt at Palm Avenue and Center Street in November of 1893 for $3,300. In today's dollars, a little over $100,000. Construction began almost immediately. In early 1894, notices published in the Redlands Daily Facts indicated the framing was up. As with Queen Anne houses of the late 19th and early 20th century, the Riddle house featured a steeply pitched roof, an asymmetrical facade pointed pediment with dental course, multiple textured siding materials, including half cove shingles, a one-story asymmetrical porch with shed roof, ornamental posts, and spandrels in between the posts, and a dominant front-facing gable. John Riddle married Miss Minnie E. Grant of New Haven, Connecticut on the 18th of April, 1894, in an Episcopal ceremony in the home of her father and stepmother. Her father, George Miles Grant, was a successful New Haven contractor. The newlyweds arrived in Redlands on May 4th, 1894, to their new home. They had one child, Charlotte Grant Riddle, born in Redlands on January 4th, 1897. Charlotte would graduate from Westlake School for Girls in Los Angeles. And I might interject that one of our board members, Marcus Paulson, Dr. Marcus Paulson, found these photographs in an auction or somewhere. He's very good at doing this, in Pasadena. Marie Reynolds recognized the photographs, and then Marcus gave them to the Mendozas. Here we go. So as mentioned, Charlotte graduated from Westlake School for the Girls in Los Angeles. John and Minnie were active at the Trinity Episcopal Church, where John served on the vestry. He was an election inspector, a member of the Redlands Country Club, treasurer of Associated Charities, and on the board of the Redlands Commercial Company. In 1898, John placed the ownership of the home in Minnie's name. John died on September 10th, 1926, and Minnie passed away the following year on November 20th. The two are buried in the Evergreen Cemetery in New Haven, Connecticut. There have been a succession of owners and/or renters since Charlotte inherited the house following her mother's death, including Charles and Catherine Longmire, Helen Bethel, the widowed mother of artist Warden Bethel, and the Reverend and Mrs. Clyde Stillion. And then there was Antonio and Mary Teixeira, are listed as the owners in 1939. The house remained in their family until at least 1950, followed by the Silva family and others. In 1970, the house on over 2 acres was listed for sale by owner for $39,000. Later, the property was reduced in size from the 2.5 acres. It is a challenge to architecturally describe this house while it retains significant vestiges of the original 1894 Queen Anne Victorian home. From a distance, it is not unlike many post-World War II stuccoed story home or single-story homes. A second look, a closer look, reveals elements common to the Victorian: dental courses, half-cove shingles within the pointed pediment, and support posts more decorative than function when compared to the elephant posts of the arts and crafts and the California bungalow. Even the front steps and broad, expansive porch are out of character for a mid-century home. In the 1890s, the steps were a purposeful tool to keep distance from the ground and the dust at bay. Patterned shingles, dental courses, and balustrades do not fit the lines and simplicity from the second half of the 20th century. Interior elements documenting the earlier history of it include the entry hall and the dining room fireplaces, doors, the built-in buffet, double hung windows with the original wavy and ripple glass, and features in the basement. The latter retains evidence of a horse stall once accessed through a large doorway in the back of the home. In 2020, the interior sprinkler system flooded portions of the home. The built-in buffet was dismantled piece by piece and meticulously restored. Discovered behind the mirror were historic photographs, historic newspapers dating from the late 19th century, a not uncommon practice of carpenters over 125 years ago who left informal time capsules as a record to future generations. The removal of the second floor and attic remains a mystery. An aerial photograph dated 1938 and the fire insurance Sanborn map from the same year documents a two-story house. Bookend evidence from 1949 is an image by photographer Elmer Kingham showing 758 South Center, now a one-story covered in the snow that blanketed Southern California in January of 1949. Sometime between 1938 and this rare winter wonderland event, the house was transformed from a two to a one-story. Was fire the cause? We do not know. To date, no written documentation has revealed itself. Chuck and Julie Mendoza purchased the house from Thomas and Tanny B. Donaldson in 1992. Their four children are fourth generation of the Mendoza family to graduate from Redlands High School. Chuck is a Redlands native, former middle school teacher, and now a professor of education at Cal State San Bernardino. Julie is a graduate of the University of Redlands and a kindergarten teacher at Mission Elementary. The Mendoza family cherishes their home. Original features are preserved while making sympathetic alterations and employing architects and contractors experienced working on historic structures. Shadows or ghosts from 1894 serve as indicators of the original design elements. While working at the back of the house, a section of the wood balustrades, spindles, was discovered preserved under a stucco wall. These vestiges of the 19th century were copied to recreate the porch railing on the front and south side of the house. One section of the original clapboard siding is located on the south side porch. The use of stained and etched glass is a reminder of the Victorian era and the rich agricultural legacy of Redlands as depicted in windows by local glass artist Tom Medlicott. The Redlands Area Historical Society recognizes and applauds Chuck, Julie, Catherine, Carolyn, Allison, and Matthew for their stewardship of this unique turn-of-the-century architectural treasure. So if we could have the Mendoza. That's their Christmas card from last year, I guess. Since we're going chronological, I ended up having to do this too, but I really enjoyed doing it. Oh, that's the one. Okay. Now we're moving to 310 Myrtle Street. This home at 310 Myrtle is a classic example of the arts and crafts California bungalow. Low-pitched gable roof, open floor plan, exposed rafters or braces, built-ins, sturdy porch posts and columns are essential elements of this affordable yet quality-built architectural style. Asbestos shingles cover the exterior with a single-centered dormer and louvered gable vent at the top of the dormer. Knee braces, often called rafter tails, at the top of the dormer. Knee braces are often called rafter tails and are tucked under the eaves. The tapered square columns supporting the wide porch overhang convey solid strength with a simple balustrade. Double hung windows with matching grills are on three sides. A bump out or bay with shed roof is featured on the south side, and adjacent is the classic ribbon driveway leading to the back. 4 lots in the Atwood and Ford subdivision, number 2 on Myrtle Street, were purchased in 1904 by Miss Sarah M. Curtis, a seamstress and dressmaker from Dayton, Illinois. She was one of 26 dressmakers in business in Redlands in 1917. Her first appearance in Redlands is in the 1902 city directory. Sarah had a shop at 21 East State Street and lived at 609 East State Street. She later moved to 134 4th Street, just right near here. Miss Curtis remained a fixture in Redlands until her passing in 1943, and her clients included the Fisher family on West Highland Avenue. Curtis hired contractor Charles C. Reasoner to build 110 and 114 Myrtle, now 310 and 314 Myrtle. The other two houses were across the street at 117 and 121 Myrtle, now later redesignated as 317 and 321. Reasoner was the contractor on at least 3 of these 4 houses. The permit for 110 was issued on July 27th, 1911. The anticipated cost, $2,000. There is no known evidence that Sarah lived in any of the 4 houses. Her venture provided steady rental income and eventually outright cash from the sale of the homes. The first documented residents at 310 Myrtle were Professor S. Guy Jones and his wife, Latita, beginning in 1912 through at least 1915. Jones was hired by the University of Redlands in 1909 as the first physics instructor. He later taught chemistry. At the time of his hiring, Jones was the youngest member of the U of R faculty. Jones was known for his athletic ability and on occasion was a ringer on the Bulldog football team, as well as breaking a couple ribs in one game. Dr. Jones and his wife returned to Myrtle following his retirement from the U of R, and the couple lived at 309 Myrtle. Another well-known Redlander was Frank J. Loge and his wife Ruth. Their time of residency was around 1919 to 1921. Frank and his business partner Rollo Holcomb were proprietors, later owned by Ted and Lois Holcomb, of the popular Triangle chocolate shop near the corner of Citrus and Orange. The next residents were Walter and Clara Blodgett, and then Lewis and Augusta Whitney. Around 1926, a young widow, Mary May Luckenbill, and her 2 young sons moved in. Tragedy had struck the young family in 1917 when living in Spokane, Washington. May was pregnant with her second child when her husband, David, was killed in a bridge collapse. A native of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Mary was a graduate of Oberlin College. She moved to Southern California following the death of her husband and then to Redlands. Mrs. Luckenbill was a member of the Redlands High School faculty for approximately 25 years. She taught women's PE and later served as Dean of Girls. She retired in 1950. May lived at 310 Myrtle until at least 1941 before moving to 924 Church Street. A search of the San Bernardino County Archives reveals the owner of 310 Myrtle in 1930 was Luella Edna Blackburn. And then in 1932, Frank F. and Lily L. Conan. Frank was the stepfather of the future owner, Nelly Hoagland, and her husband, Raymond Keith Hoagland. Frank is also listed as the owner of 314 Myrtle, where he lived from about 1933 until his death in 1963. Marion T. and Marjorie Burr owned the home in 1941, and Earl and Ada Johnson in 1945. Raymond Keith and Nelly Hoagland are listed beginning in 1947. The Hoagland family has a long and fascinating connection with the San Bernardino Valley beginning a century earlier. Keith's grandfather, Lucas Hoagland, arrived in 1847 as a member of the Mormon Battalion of the U.S. Army. The Hoagland family owned a farm that would eventually become part of Norton Air Force Base. Keith was a skilled electrician at Norton, beginning in 1943 until his retirement in 1972. Following Nelly's death in 1971, Keith married Doris. Keith passed away in 1990 and Doris in 2014. For 74 years, members of the extended Hoagland family remain stewards of this beautifully restored California bungalow. Christy Reed, the granddaughter of Doris Hoagland, and her husband, Christopher Reed, moved into the house in 2006 and purchased it in 2008. Christy is a PE teacher and Chris a physician's associate. They have 2 children, Mackenzie and Dalton. During their tenure, they have replaced electrical and plumbing in its entirety, rebuilt the front porch, installed new irrigation and a new lawn. The roof was replaced about 15 to 20 years ago. More recently, in 2017, the DIY Restored program hosted by Brett Waterman restored the original hardwood floors, fireplace, completely redid the kitchen, installed period-appropriate windows in the dining room, painted the exterior in a dark gray and blue, moved the air intakes, and installed new beautiful vent ducts, as well as other touch-ups to the original wood accents throughout the house. The Redlands Area Historical Society recognizes and honors the efforts of Chris, Christy, Mackenzie, and Dalton Reed for their dedication and stewardship of 310 Myrtle Street, as well as their commitment to preserving their family's legacy. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Aaron Benson. He's going to do a house on Mariposa.
303 Mariposa.
Alrighty. North of Redlands Country Club sits a large Spanish-style residence formerly bordered by Westwood, but since subdivided. The house was built by Davis Donald in 1923 for Dr. Walter B. Power and his second wife, Edith. Although there are some conflicting reports, the cost to build this home initially was estimated to be $13,500 for the garage. A separate article states the home was built cost $20,000 to build. When built, there were several unique features consisting of a roof garden, as well as an iron stairway leading to the garden and a glass sun porch. An early article mentioning this home boasts that the house is fireproof as the casements are metal and the walls and floors are concrete. The interior is finished in plaster and there is scarcely any wood in the house. The history of a home is a history of the families that lived in it, as well as the architectural history. 303 Mariposa is a stunning house and has only had 3 owners: Dr. and Mrs. Powers, Dr. and Mrs. Bailey, and Mr. and Mrs. Bailey. If the last 2 surnames of the last owners seem familiar, they are. The current owners, Brooke and Crystal Bailey, came into possession of the home 2 years ago after Dr. and Mrs. Bailey, Brooks' parents, passed away. Brooks grew up in this home and has seen its impressive transformation firsthand. The Spanish-style house was built on a then bare hilltop that looked across the small swell that separates it from the country club. In an article recounting Mrs. Power's life, Frank Moore wrote that you could call it a hacienda style since it has a sprawling plan that seems to say that any number of people are welcome at any time. It has a broad red tile roof and a large living room with a cathedral ceiling, not unlike many mission sanctuaries. There is a very large fireplace at one end of the great room. Mr. Moore recounts that Edith would make her friends nervous when starting fires, as her preferred method was to douse the logs in a liberal amount of kerosene. Walter Bonami Power was born in Montclair, New Jersey in 1874. He graduated from Columbia College of Physicians and Surgeons in 1895 as the youngest man in his class. At that time, you didn't need a bachelor's degree to go to medical school, and in fact, Dr. Power has a PhD, but no bachelor's degree. He had to wait until his 21st birthday to get his license to practice in New York. His medical license is number 12. He left Bellevue Hospital after contracting tuberculosis and came to Redlands to recover in 1902. He opened his medical practice in his home on Cajon Street in 1903, driving a horse and buggy to make house calls. Dr. Power was one of the mounted escorts who accompanied Theodore Roosevelt's carriage during the president's tour of Redlands in 1903. In the photo of Mr. Smiley greeting Roosevelt at Canyon Crest Park, Dr. Power is shown behind the president. In addition to being, quote, the only surgeon east of LA qualified to open an abdomen, he was also a well-known hunter who liked to hunt throughout the area when these sage and scrub-covered hills still harbored abundant pheasant, quail, and rabbit. Although the current owner, Crystal Bailey, says she frequently sees quail in the area. It's said that during the Great Depression, he bought RCC, Redlands Country Club, for $1 and then sold it back to them later for the same price. When World War II caused the club to lose men and money to operate, a dedicated group of men led by Dr. Walter Power spent many hours irrigating, trimming trees, mowing greens and fairways to keep the club in playable condition. Dr. Power passed away in the home after suffering a stroke in 1975. He was 100. Edith remained in the residence until she passed away a few years later in 1981. In 1981, the Bailey family acquired the 3.9-acre property. The Baileys connected several buildings with arcades and subdivided the property to the east. The Baileys added on to the home, relocating the kitchen to a more convenient central part of the new construction and redesigned the original kitchen as a master suite. The primary entryway still exists, although it's now enclosed with matching archways and architectural sophistication similar to its original design. The chapel's tall ceilings and beams are exposed, and the home's grandeur is exemplified with very tall ceilings throughout. The floors and mantels have been redone with local travertine and blend nicely with the Spanish style of the house. The travertine continues outside and details, The travertine continues to the outside of the house in details and columns lining the catwalk and porches. With additions, the Baileys built a pool that is surrounded by the home on 3 sides. Today from the street, you can see the beautiful catwalk and patios that look out toward the country club. The home has 2 upstairs areas and are accessed by separate stairways. Dr. and Mrs. Bailey hailed from the East Coast and both shared a passion for medicine and helping others. Dr. Bailey was a prominent heart surgeon and Mrs. Bailey was a nurse with the Loma Linda healthcare system for years. Mrs. Bailey had a passion for entertaining, cooking, sewing. Her life experiences became part of her passion for quilting which she shared through teaching quilting classes with her girlfriends. Mrs. Bailey maintained many gardens throughout the property and often had very fragrant bouquets around the house. Mrs. Bailey also served as a professional tennis player, manager for professional tennis player Bobby Riggs. Dr. Bailey's name may be familiar to some of you as he performed the surgery on transplanting a baboon heart in the human infant known as Baby Faye. The procedure became one of 1984's biggest news stories, drawing daily attention from national news networks. Dr. Bailey went on to transplant hearts in 376 infants and became an authority on congenital heart surgery and a consultant to physicians around the world. His work also propelled Loma Linda Health to be one of the world's leading pediatric heart transplant centers and led innovations that enable surgeons to repair certain complex congenital heart defects instead of having to undergo a transplant. Though widely recognized for transplantations, they were only a small part of his practice, which consisted of all types of pediatric and infant open heart surgeries. Many of his infant heart transplant patients came back to visit him as teenagers and adults. At least one went to medical school. In 2017, after a 36-year-old former patient visited him, Dr. Bailey said, "When we operate on these babies, the only hope is that they will live longer than us. It's nice to know that's playing out." When making rounds with young patients, Bailey would also often wear neckties featuring Snoopy or Looney Tunes characters. "It sedates the kids a bit," he said. Dr. Bailey was also known to change a baby's diaper if needed. Mrs. Bailey passed away in April 2019, and Dr. Bailey passed away a month later. The current owners, Brooke and Crystal Bailey, are breathing life and youth into this impressive home and property. Mrs. Nancy Bailey's rose garden is still intact, and when in bloom, the flowers emit an oppressive scent. Brooks and Crystal have reintroduced an orchard on the property, and they have nearly 50 olive trees. The trees are managed by Lot 22 Olive Oil Company. They also plan on planting and maintaining grapevines on the south side of the property. Brooks and Crystal both attended high school in Redlands, and Crystal attended our very own University of Redlands. Brooks is a successful businessman and realtor in Southern California. Crystal is active in the community in the country club, and she manages the Bailey's bustling family life with grace. Crystal is a lifelong Redlandser and loves our charming town. As with many people who visit the home, the Bailey's favorite room in the house is the chapel room with its wood beams and support rods that serve structural purposes, but also contribute to the mission style aesthetic in the room. They hope to restore the period specific lighting as well as restore the beams to natural finishes. Pictures can absolutely not capture the grandeur of this room. With two young girls bouncing around the home, it certainly feels like the welcoming home that Walter and Edith designed nearly 100 years ago. It's my proud pleasure to award this home and its lovely owners, Brooks and Crystal Bailey, a 2021 Heritage Home Award.
All these little people. Hello out there in Zoom land. I really hate the Zoom presentations, but I'm going to sally forth anyway. 2 years ago, or maybe it's 3 years ago, a young lady by the name of Gina approached me at the end of a cemetery tour and said, I live in an old house on Garden Hill Drive, and I think it's 1932. And I looked at her like, there's another dumb person that doesn't know what they're talking about. All of Garden Hill is built earlier in the early 1910 to 1920. 32 is way off. And she asked me where she could research, and I told her, okay, go to the city, go to the quality of life department, and pull out your manila folder and look up all your building permits. And she did, and she called me because I gave her my telephone number. And she said, there's no building permit. I said, all the 1932s should be in that folder. There is no 1932 in the folder. So I went upstairs, which I hate to do because I have bad hip. And so I went upstairs and look up, I have a little file on Redlands Heights, and I pulled it out. And sure enough, at 127 Garden Hill Drive, actually it wasn't 127 Garden Hill Drive, it was on Garden Street. This is the only house I've ever done. Not only does the address change, but the street changes. It's like, give me a break, And so I start off and I'm looking at Garden Street. And of course, the city directories don't list anything on Garden Street in the 1930s. Nobody builds anything in Redlands in the 1930s. This is a depression period. So I was a little bit depressed. I couldn't find anything. And darn if she didn't call me again. And so I said to Gina Malachowski, let me see what I can do. And so I ended up researching, and I found out the home was owned by Harry H. Ford, Ford Street. And then his brother is Isaac Ford, Ford Park. So now I was really interested. So Harry Ford and his younger brother, Isaac Ford, who was born in Philadelphia and attended local schools. He worked for the Reading Coal and Iron Company, resigning at the age of 21 to come west. He came to Redlands in April 1886. Urged by his brother, he stayed for 2 weeks and then returned in September to purchase 225 acres in Redlands Heights. He worked with his brother surveying land in Redlands Heights for 3 years. Isaac Ford was the first city engineer of Redlands, so it made sense they did surveying. In 1887, he returned to Philadelphia and married Sally Leeds. And by 1897, the couple had 3 children. Damned if they didn't call one of them Harry Ford. And that ends up messing me up for a long time, because how long could this guy live? You know, and it goes on and on and on. Nothing is ever easy like it should be. In 1895, he was hired as a bookkeeper of the Union Bank. He was then promoted to assistant cashier and then director of the Redlands Heights Water Company. He then became president of Union Bank when Curtis Wells and Carl Wells stepped aside for his leadership. Harry Ford invested planting citrus and on nearly 40 acres of Redlands Heights. He built a Victorian house in 1897 on the corner of Sunset and South Street that remained his home for 40 years. His quarter-mile driveway was named Ford Street. He called the ranch Edgewood. Successful banking allowed Ford to buy lots in downtown Redlands. He planted 23,000 eucalyptus trees on his property and then built a winding road through the grove. Today we call the road Sunset. The eucalyptus growing in the canyons north of Sunset are descendants of his 23,000 trees. In 1913, freeze left much of his citrus orchard leafless and a crop destroyed. This freeze is horrible to Redlands. Population of Redlands between 1910 and 1920 went down. For 18 years, Ford was director of the Chamber of Commerce and very active on the Realty Board. In 1902, he joined George E. Atwood and created a subdivision at Fern and Cajon. That Myrtle Street home we just did, that was the Fern, and it was the Ford and Atwood subdivision, which he started. Having owned the Baker House, Oxford Hotel, and Redlands Boulevard and Orange Street, Harry was president of the Redlands and Yucaipa Land Company, South Mountain Water Company, Redlands Heights Water Company, and director for the Crafton Water Company. So one little side thing was starting a little place called Yucaipa. He invested in the Monte Vista Syndicate that owned the Burridge Mansion and homes on West Highland Avenue. He also owned property in Hollywood and Los Angeles. Harry had a new home built in 1932 that was listed as 1675 Garden Street, but the early directories indicate the new house was a half mile from the original residence. Ford Street at the time did not extend to Garden, but his new home prompted the city to name Ford Street just north of Garden. So just to confuse the hell out of me, there are 2 street signs off of Garden. One says Ford and the other one says Garden Hill. Only place in Redlands, 2 street signs, same street. Yes, there it is, right there. And the older one is Ford. So no wonder I can't find the damn place, you know? So Harry had a new home built in 1932. Okay, go on. Harry Ford decided to build a Norman English home in 1932 at 1675 Garden Street on 2.5 acres. The Knoll Top residence was east of Garden Court and some distance from Garden Street. The farmhouse has a stately presence with 9 Doric columns supporting a piazza extending the length of the home. A familiar farm residence front door marks the entrance. Red bricks are used to build the steps and onto the porch. The steep gable roof is decorated with 3 matched dormers. The concrete foundation is 26 by 84 feet, supports a structure composed of concrete brick walls, 4 bedrooms, and a maid's quarters upstairs, reached by a spiral staircase. Built with 5 fireplaces, the largest is in the dining room. S.Y. Tremaine was the general contractor on the home. Shiplap siding covers the outside walls, the entire first story. Steep gables can be seen from the backyard. The sunroom faces the garden with glass French doors that later became a swimming pool in 1988. The backyard was a beautiful patio gazebo with fireplace. The U shape of the home allows the rear patio served by the kitchen addition. B.M. Lightfoot completed the interior stucco and finish. This is all out of a newspaper article I had upstairs. Built with 2-car garage, the garage has a doorway on each side, recalling the previous entry from Garden Hill to the west on Garden Street from the south. Lot splits in 1979, left of the home with only garden court or Garden Hill entry. The previous driveway that extended from Garden now creates as 3 homes. The water meter remains on Garden Street some distance away. The water meter is still on Garden Street. So the right-of-way has to go through those lots that they don't own to their house. Go figure. So when did the address change from 1675 Garden Street to 127 Garden Hill Drive? When Interstate 10 was constructed in 1961, 4th Street was named to extend from East Citrus and Sunset. The quarter-mile drive into the Ford home was called Ford Street, and in the 1960s extended all the way to South Garden Street. In 1932, anticipating the extension of Ford Street to Garden Street, the sign obelisk on Garden was named Ford Street. Garden Hill did not exist. Garden Court ended in a dead end. Harry Ford only lived in the home a short period of time. In 1937, his son, Harry Ford, born in 1890, moved into the modern home. Ford, like his father, was prominent in the citrus business. He farmed the 10 acres on Ford Street plus 20 acres on Colton and Dearborn. Ford served on the board of the Redlands Cooperative Fruit Association and mutual orange distributors that became Pure Gold. He was appointed to the Redlands City Council from August 1927 to April 1930. He graduated from Redlands High in 1909 and then the University of Redlands and Cornell University. He competed in the 1933 Olympics and won 2 championship plaques for trap shooting. Harry Ford Jr. was an active nascent Elks Club member, commander of the American Legion Post 106, and statewide skeet founder in 1919. Harry and Lucille sold the home to Everett and Jan Chardadima in 1944. The couple came from the Netherlands. Everett was principal of the Jefferson Elementary School in San Bernardino. Lucille was a member of the National League of Pen Women. She wrote articles for Sunshine Magazine, Telescope, Messenger, and the Light and Life Press. Nenke died in the home in 1953 at the age of 59. Everett sold the home in 1959 to Colonel Lawrence and Margaret B. Thomas. The home became 127 Garden Hill in 1961. Colonel Thomas was the United States Air Force station at Norton Air Force Base. He retired and began Thomas Realty in 1967. The Thomas couple built the carport to the garage, remodeled the kitchen, completed a re-roof, installed new heating and air, improved the septic system, and split the parcel, selling the lots along Garden Street in 1979. The home sold again to Paul and Elizabeth McClure in 1983. By 1987, Dr. George and Brenda Watkins built the kitchen addition with a new master bedroom and pool in 1988. George Watkins finished improvements with a solar heater in 1989. Watkins sold to Anthony Q. Boyd in 2001. Carolyn R. Boyd was added to the title in 2010. Anthony Boyd performed cosmetic dentistry. And there's some shifty stuff in there with that doctor too. But I didn't include that in the award because I'd be sued later on. Greg and Gina Malachowski bought the home in 2014. They modernized the kitchen, converted the dining room to a parlor, created a nursery and designed the garden backyard while renovating the pool. Completing the cemetery tour in 2019, Gina asked for help to research her 1932 home. The 1675 Garden Street address and 127 Garden Hill address promised a mystery worth exploring. I lied. Greg and Caston Incorporated currently are the contractors doing the Redlands Historical Museum on Brookside Avenue, and he is doing interior work for that building. It is a great pleasure to finish this and to award them a 2021 Heritage Award. So Gina. I want to introduce Marjorie Lewis as our next presenter. I also want to scandalously report that quite a few of the Heritage Awards winner this season are not Historical Society members. And that is truly scandalous because one of them, Chuck over here, Mendoza, is a previous student of mine at Cook High, where I thoroughly indoctrinated students on the history of the area. He went on to teach science and other things that aren't as important. But anyway, Marjorie, our next presenter.
Good evening. Tonight we'll be talking about the Greenway. Oh, thank you. Oh, yes, thank you. The Greenway Adobe at 726 Chestnut Avenue, circa 1947. This beautiful 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath home of approximately 2,020 square feet located at 726 Chestnut Avenue is characterized as Adobe, which is one of the oldest building materials made by man. The Adobe is made with tightly compacted earth, clay, and straw that is hand or form shaped into bricks and dried by the sun. This method has been used for thousands of years and in many parts of the world, whereas modern bricks are kiln fired at high temperatures. Sustainable features of an Adobe home is that they are fire and bug resistant. Adobe also is an energy efficient material which conserves energy because of its capacity to absorb, store, and release the sun's heat energy. Its density and levels of conductivity help to keep the internal temperature of a building stable and have inherent qualities for both heating and cooling. So in the summer, then your home can be cooler, in the winter, warmer. The style of Adobe homes built in the 20th century is typically termed California Hacienda or Spanish colonial. One of the most recognizable characteristics of a Hacienda style home is a low pitched roof with handmade red clay roof tiles, thick Adobe walls, exposed beams used as wall and ceiling supports, and center courtyards with several doors radiating out to the courtyard. This home has all the features listed as evidence showing a bedroom ceiling, formal dining room, and living room. The first water connection was installed on this parcel on July 22nd, 1925 by W.H. Warner. Further research about this person did show he bought other lots in Rialto and in LA, but little else about him was discovered. Notice on the water connection card, the character of building listed still includes blacksmith, livery, and feed stable. The parcel was unimproved until 1945, when Elmo and Stella Rayfield, who purchased the lot, applied for a building permit on June 6 for a foundation. They were living at the time at 219 Nordina. Elmo was a plumber and Stella was a packer at Gold Banner. Note on the building permit below under contractor's name, it says day labor. So we can presume that they participated in the building of this house. On July 12, 1945, a second permit was prepared for a single-story dwelling and to be built by day labor at a proposed cost of $4,000. We need the grant deed to Brewers. The Rayfields did not live in the home very long as they put it up for sale by owner on March 10th, 1948. They sold the house to Wisely and Hazel Brewer. It was interesting because the day of the grantee was the same day as the open house. So I'm not sure how they did it that quick, but it was March 10th, 1948 was the ad day, and that was the day of the grantee too. So anyway, so then there was an article. They didn't live in the house very long, the Brewers, but they lived there long enough for the Daily Facts newspaper to make a nice little article about the home. I'll read a little bit about it, although it's not in the pictures, but I'll read some of it. It says Brewer House, built of Adobe. And this again was on June 5th, 1948. House built with 2 wings at an unconventional angle. A house built around a patio best describes the residence of Mr. and Mrs. Wisely Brewer, 726 Chestnut Avenue. This California adobe house with a Spanish tile roof is planned so that it surrounds a covered veranda and an outdoor grill on a rear patio. The 2 wings of the house meet at an unconventional angle, creating an old world charm reminiscent of the Spanish hacienda. Complete privacy of the patio is assured by a 5-foot adobe wall, which connects with the chimney of the barbecue grill. A rustic wooden gate leads from the patio to the vegetable garden and laundry drying area in the rear of the home. So they had a drying area. All of the rooms in the rear of the house have an outside door opening onto the veranda adjacent to the patio. The bedroom, hall, living room, kitchen, service porch, and garage all have outside exits. The veranda is paved with flagstone. The large living room has a beautiful beam ceiling with exposed sloping rafters. Ceilings in the other rooms are also of the same pattern. A novel storage arrangement has been incorporated into the bedroom hall where cupboards and linen shelves line one entire side of the hallway. Then it says that all of the windows of this charming adobe are wood casement types which swing outward. Each window is divided into 3 panes of glass. The Brewers did not reside in the home very long. They listed it for sale with a realtor at an open house on November 14th, 1948. We have an open house ad, I think. There we go. There's the open house ad. And then it shows also the grant deed to the Greenways. The home was then purchased by Dr. Frank L. Greenway, Jr., PhD, and his wife, Mary Beth Betty Brehans, on February 23rd, 1949. Frank and Betty met at Stanford University and married in 1941. They moved to Redlands in 1946 and lived at 35 North University, where he was a professor of economics and business administration at the University of Redlands for 35 years. He received his PhD from USC and co-authored at least 2 textbooks on finance. He was a member of Rotary, Chamber of Commerce, Board of Directors, and a Redlands Community Hospital Corporation member. Dr. Greenway died in 1997 after he was married to his lovely wife after 56 years of marriage. Betty was involved in the U of R Faculty Wives Club, Town and Gown, Assistance League, and several bridge clubs. She continued to live at 726 Chestnut Avenue for a total of approximately 63 years. And then in 2011, she moved to a retirement community in Santa Rosa, California. Betty lived to be almost 103 years old and passed away on December 20th, 2020. It's reported that she continued to play bridge until COVID prevented any gatherings. Frank and Betty had 3 children and were active members of the First Presbyterian Church, where Frank's father, Reverend Frank L. Greenway, was the minister and resided at 806 Cajon Street. Current history. In 2011, the Greenway home was sold to Frank L. and Sherry Green. Don't you love how they semi-shared a name? Now, in this case, the for sale by owner worked. Frank and Sherry's daughter lived across the street from the Greenway home, and when they would visit their daughter, from time to time, they would tell Betty Greenway they would love to buy her home. So wishes do come true, and one day she told them they could buy it. So Frank and Sherry Green have consistently renovated their home to reflect the integrity of the Hacienda style. Since their residence, they have totally renovated their main hall bathroom, new kitchen with custom-made cabinets and Spanish tiles. Do you love that bathroom? Isn't that beautiful? Created a patio. This is a new room that was just finished. And look at how they matched the beams up, and that was just done a week ago. Created a patio with more interesting Spanish tiles. Pool, they put the pool in. Look at the fountain they've done. You can't quite see it, but there's a little miniature golf area, beautiful fountain. There's the courtyard, the back of the courtyard. And they also did install pergolas. And there's a close-up, and there you can see there. This is my favorite too, the beautiful enclosed patio. So the Redlands Historical Society want to thank Frank and Sherry Green for their outstanding dedication and labor of love in ensuring the Spanish colonial hacienda, which has been remarkably and beautifully upgraded and remodeled to reflect its original architectural style. And so we hereby present the Greens with this 2021 Heritage Award, and Sherry Green will be accepting the award tonight. I'm supposed to have Jill come up to the podium. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you very much, Marjorie. Great presentation. Before we adjourn, I'd like to just say a few words. Mr. Steve Spiller has served as our Redlands, wow, that's a lot of light. Our Redlands Area Historical Society president for a number of years. His servant's heart is evident through his willingness to assist in the organization's projects and programs on many levels and at every turn. The board of Redlands Area Historical Society and its membership, thank you for your service and dedication, and would like to present you with this plaque to commemorate.
Oh. Good. I never used the job.
I guess he was going to be a man of few words this evening. So with that, we'd like to thank you again for your attendance and for all of those that were involved in the research process and nominating and allowing us to do what really drives us. We appreciate you. We appreciate your homes and your dedication to the history of Redlands. Thanks for being here.
Is Mike Albanese here? I have your newsletter. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah,